Okay, Commissioners, we're back. First thing that we need to do is to have a motion to suspend our rules so that we can go ahead and take action on the CVB's budget. Do I have a motion to suspend the rules? Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, next we need a motion to approve the Tourism Authority's fiscal year 2014 budget totaling $3,945,654 in accordance with Article 4, Room Occupancy and Tourism Development Tax, Tourism Authority of the Cabarrus County Code of Ordinances. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great. Next up, we have the EDC. Mr. Cox, we're happy to have you with us tonight.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. It's a privilege for us to be here. Thank you very much for your partnership and your investment in increasing tax base in Cabarrus County and giving corporations the opportunity to grow new businesses here. It's especially an honor to be among the first three who presented this evening because we have such a great relationship among the agencies. The work is very similar in many regards and very different in others. As an example, the EDC had the opportunity actually to recruit Great Wolf Lodge here a number of years ago, and that was one of the real game changers for our community. And the Arts Council, some of the largest investors now in the Arts Council are some of the corporations that have been recruited here or expanded here in Cabarrus County. So there's a real synergy among the work of these agencies. From a budget standpoint, and working with your county manager and discussing the needs of our budget with our EDC board, we're making the same request for the same amount of money that we had in last year's budget, which is $312,000. A year ago, when I presented to you, we talked about work that we were going to undertake in the area revising our small business and entrepreneurial development plan. We engaged the services of Market Street Services from Atlanta, Georgia. They had first done a profile for us in 2007 after some work that they had done for the North Carolina Research Campus. So we re-engaged them late last summer. They made a number of visits here, looked at a lot of data, spoke with a lot of folks, stakeholders, internal and external, and created a new small business and entrepreneurial development plan that they delivered to a joint board meeting of the Cabarrus Regional Chamber of Commerce and the Cabarrus Economic Development Corporation. The plan was presented on, I think, December 21st. It was adopted that day, and Anna Lou Wilson on our staff was assigned the duties to begin implementation on that plan, and so she has. It has about 6 areas in it, many of them responding directly to the needs of small business. As an example, in the area of assistance, acting as a gateway for service providers offering basic services to businesses of all sizes. In the area of awareness, working with small business assistance service providers to provide and fill in gaps of services and resolve unnecessary overlaps in available services. There's a whole section with respect to capital formation. That's not typically a function of county or city government. It certainly, in a community of our size, wouldn't be a function of an economic development corporation or a chamber of commerce. So we pulled together a number of bankers. In fact, that meeting was today, and we talked to them about a number of things, including angel investments, whether or not there's a feasible opportunity for us to create an angel investor network specifically for Cabarrus County. What about a revolving loan fund? What about the Community Reinvestment Act, and how does that apply now that banking has gone through what it's gone through, and what are the regulations as it relates to that? What about the possibility of a micro loan fund for new entrepreneurs? How would we interact, for example, with the Charlotte Venture Challenge, which we have supported and participated in the last several years ago, and conducting a survey to identify the capital needs of responding businesses. As you know, I've told you many times, when we think about what are the key issues, needs of small business, and they're primarily 5 things. Small businesses want free money. You know, they would take all the free money from whatever source it was to build their business. They want the lowest tax burden possible. They want the lowest regulatory environment possible so that the free enterprise can work and they can grow their business. They want you to buy their stuff and they want you to send them customers. That's the best thing that a government can do for small business. And in the meantime, we're trying to find ways to help connect them. So our partner agency, the Chamber, we're actually looking at ways to encourage the growth of brand new businesses in the first 3 years of their formation without actually investing in the Chamber. So we're looking at inviting all businesses that are 3 years old or younger to join the Chamber for free so that we can connect them to the larger business community in a faster way than they might otherwise be able to, and then to offer entrepreneurial coaching as a free service based on their membership in the Chamber. One of our Chamber members has purchased a license with an entrepreneurial development company, and it offers YouTube videos and a number of other tech resources that take business people through how you make the business plan, how you implement it, how you evaluate staff, how you hire them, all those kinds of things. So we have focused very intensely on the issue of small business. One of the other issues that we talked to you about a year ago was a youth entrepreneurial academy. And so we looked at that, and we talked about that in the budget. And after the budget discussion, Commissioner Poole was kind enough to send some information about a program that Stanley County was using, and so I interfaced there with the Chamber exec there, and we began to look at a number of different programs. With this coming in December and evaluating other programs, and with the heavy licensing fee of the YEA program, we chose to take a step back from that to evaluate other opportunities, which we're doing. As an example, there's an a North Carolina, is it Green? Is that the name of it? REAL, NC REAL program. You are, because that was one of the references that you sent my way as well. Being a small staff and having limited resources, what we decided to do so far with that is we provided funds to Rowan Cabarrus Community College so that they can enroll one of their professors in a certification program so that he can become certified in the NC REAL program and then teach the course at Rowan Cabarrus Community College. One of the other things we did a year ago is we offered scholarships to the first 10 students who would enroll in RCCC's entrepreneurial development program. Those are just a couple of the examples. Something we did this year in the middle school, there's a national program primarily conducted in larger communities, Charlotte being one, I think Boston, maybe Chicago, New York, but a program called Lemonade Day. And we actually did on-site training over a 6-week period of time. The students conducted the lemonade sales event during the Spring into Arts Festival just a few weekends ago. And if you were in downtown Concord that day, you know they should have been selling hot chocolate instead of lemonade because they would have made a whole lot more money, lemonade being cold and hot chocolate not. But it was interesting not only to reach the age demographic, but the minority demographic as well in that kind of a program. And it's just a first step, but nonetheless, that is underway. So from the standpoint of how we have invested in that small business and entrepreneurial development plan and in the issue of small business and youth entrepreneur, those are the things that we have done. With respect to the recruiting piece of our business, as many of you know, Ryan McDaniels transitioned from our operation in mid-April to running the EDC at Lake Norman. He did a great job for us for a long time, and we certainly miss him. Glad that he's in the region working with us as a regional partner. We have filled his position. The new person will begin on June the 17th. Her name is Margie Bukowski. She comes to us with a lot of experience. She spent a long time with the Sara Lee Corporation, and for the last 4 years she has served with the North Carolina Department of Commerce. She was recruited to come there by the Secretary of Commerce, Keith Crisco. She has worked with some exceptionally large projects in North Carolina, Facebook and Google as a couple of examples. And one of the compelling pieces to me was Margie is familiar with us as well. From the commerce standpoint, she ran the S&D Coffee Project, which was a $40-some million project back and that successfully closed in November. And the other project she ran for commerce a couple of years ago was the Celgard Project, which was a $230 million project projecting jobs over the first 7 years of about 530. So she is very familiar with us. And I had the opportunity to bring her to town and have her meet with some brokers. There was a broker-developer event at one of the industrial parks. But long story short, it will be great to have that kind of person with those kind of relationships, contacts, awareness of the state resources as they stand today, and a long list of relationships with site selection consultants around the country. So we feel that that's going to bring a great deal of strength to us. So in summary, again, those are the specific things that we spoke to you about what we would be doing over the course of this last year. And again, the budget request, $312,000, is the same today as it was 1 year ago.
Just to note, the one that's on the board, that's not correct. That's just and the one that you see in front of you in your packet, that is not that's not the budget that they're proposing. It is $312,000.
Yeah, 312.
Yep.
This is 688.
Sorry. 312.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions concerning the EDC and their budget request?
Yeah. First, I'd like to ask, with the initiative towards the small business and entrepreneurs, as a small business owner myself, if I were to contact your organization, I know you went over some of the services perhaps offered, but what specifically, would you offer? So it wasn't quite clear, so.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Each business is industry or business specific. So you might come with regard to capital formation, and you might be interested in being connected to the somebody that provides SBA loans. So we have contacts in the banking industry locally and with the SBA in particular, where we would bring them into our office, put you in a conference room with them, and you could handle the issues related to finance. If you're interested in human resources or in marketing or in additional studies, then for additional studies, we would connect you primarily with Rowan Cabarrus Community College and the number of things that they offer. We would bring in human resource professionals to deal with HR issues, legal. It would be the same kind of thing. So it's really a la carte. Whatever your key issues are, if you want to talk about, sometimes folks want to talk about planning and zoning. That primarily, generally speaking, relates to a city function. So as we did a few weeks ago, we sat in a room where there were department heads and some elected officials and some water and sewer folks and electric folks, and we looked at a piece of property and we talked about, we listened as the developer spoke about how they hope to take this through planning and zoning and deliver it and create new product. So whatever your specific issue would be,
Okay.
if it related to, getting, sourcing fruits and vegetables from local farms in North Carolina, and that was a key issue for you, we might, talk to somebody at the Rural Center, although that doesn't really cover Cabarrus County. But there are state laws that make that more of a burden than it is a pleasure.
Correct.
You talked about free money a while ago. Where does that come from?
China, isn't that right?
Yeah, it's the only place you're going to get it because they got to borrow it.
I understand. Aside from that, I don't know.
I was curious as to your thoughts on how our local economic development efforts will be affected by the reorganization that's going on in the state. I had just read the article that was in the Charlotte Observer today, and one of the statements is our core has been agribusiness, manufacturing, small business, and entrepreneurship, which certainly small business and entrepreneurship goes back into it. And it says we'll go back to our core, but then in other areas of the article, there seemed to be emphasis on rural areas, which in some instances we might apply. But do you have a feel for how that's going to affect us here?
No, and here's why. I'm not sure that anybody who works for Commerce or anybody that is tangentially related to the North Carolina Department of Commerce fully understands how it's going to work in its next iteration. There was a hearing yesterday in Raleigh, and Secretary Decker was the speaker. She was speaking to members of a House subcommittee on the reorganization of commerce. So I listened to an hour and a half of it, and I wouldn't characterize the Secretary's comments except to say she painted with a very broad brush. So it could be very agricultural in the traditional sense. It could be very high-tech bio-life sciences on the other hand. I think the point that I heard her say is we want all 100 counties in North Carolina to be prosperous, to have a level playing field, and to have the same opportunity that every other county has. And I think in our heart of hearts, we all would want that. There are some geographic, political, transportation, and other boundaries that make some areas like Cabarrus County one of the 10 most prosperous counties in North Carolina, and counties that aren't connected to major metros or transportation or new century technology less wealthy. I'm not sure I got the whole sentence correct, but there are going to be some that are prosperous like us, and it's going to be hard to make those who are disadvantaged prosperous quickly. It's not something you can open up a can, pour in water, and suddenly everybody is. I will say that one of the things that we're most interested in is how it relates to the regional partnerships. Senate Bill 127 eliminates the statutorily created partnerships and defunds all of the partnerships. There's a House bill, I think it's 633, that pretty much does the same thing. What the Secretary said yesterday was there might be a transition period where the state might fund some of that past July 1, maybe for 6 months, maybe even for 12. I think what she said is we have to have a runway to land the plane. And I don't know that she's figured out how long that runway is. A question for us is going to be, it appears to me and many others that the partnerships as we know them are going away. And even if Commerce gives them a little bit of time and a little bit of money to go along with it, is it prudent for us to take the money that we invest in the Charlotte Regional Partnership and put that money there, knowing they're going away? Or would it be more prudent in our circumstance, and Mike being on that board, we've had the conversation, would it be more prudent for us to take that same money and hire somebody who works in manufacturing, in the manufacturing businesses that exist already in Cabarrus County, not a recruiter, but somebody that has a manufacturing background that speaks the language that can go to each one of those companies in our county and ask them, how can we help? What can we do? Are you going to expand? Is there anything that's going to cause you to move? Those kind of things. I was summoned to a meeting in Charlotte last week among the partnership, EDAC people, and there was a lot of conversation. There wasn't a plan, and at this moment there's not a plan going forward except to call our legislators and ask them to continue the funding for the partnerships, and best I can tell, that's not going to happen.
Thank you, and that helps. As I have stated before, I feel like the money that we spend on economic development is one of the areas where we have a return on investment, and I hope that in the next year that we'll have an opportunity to sit down and talk about whether it would require additional funds or not, some sort of strategy that we may cooperatively work throughout the county on to utilize the Philip Morris property. I think that's a high priority, and I know you've worked on that a great deal. So that's just my wish list. Thank you.
Good wish list.
Once we pass the budget, it's already done. So I'm telling you beforehand, my concern is giving the money that is allotted or has a line item for the Charlotte Regional Partnership, is that I think that reading the article today, like many of us have, it did not leave me a warm, fuzzy feeling that the regional partnerships are going to exist as they are now, if they exist in the future, and if they do, in what form or fashion. So that my personal belief right now is that in seeing what I believe is the writing on the wall, that money that would go to the Charlotte Regional Partnership could be better used, like you're talking about, or somewhere here in the county, to devote to retention and expansion here in the county, so that we can show Secretary Decker we got a long runway here that she can land any plane she wants.
Thank you.
But I just think I would urge your board, before you cut a check to them, to please make certain that is discussed and there's good dialogue. If it's cut, it's cut, but I think that money right now can be better spent elsewhere.
And what you're seeing there, that's just a placeholder, and
Right.
we have discussed, and I think there's a lot of support for it.
Okay. Thank you.
I've got another question or statement. The municipalities that also contribute to your budget, I see Concord 75,000, Kannapolis 55,000. I mean, obviously, we're a majority piece of that, your funding. Is there any plan to ask the cities for additional funding?
Well, they increased their funding last year.
Correct. But seeing, that we are substantially contributing more, seems like, it would make sense for the cities to kick in a little more. I know our tax rate's higher than the municipalities. However, there could be, services gained by a business coming in, whether it's water, power. They're receiving, money for that service that I know increases their budget as well.
I'd be happy to ask them on your behalf.
Well, you can do that. Okay.
I would add one thing to that. We need to realize that every single successful project that comes from our economic development efforts is taxed by the county, and we receive that benefit. The municipalities are gambling. They do not receive those benefits unless it lands in their city limits. So it's a little bit more of an unsure thing than it is for the county.
Right. And I agree with that.
Well, other than the city of Concord does geographically take up a whole lot of space. I think that you're probably more correct as far as Mount Pleasant, Midland, and Harrisburg goes. But if you look at where development's going, the majority of that's going to be in Concord or Kannapolis.
Right.
Yes, it's in the county. The majority of those developments are in Concord and Kannapolis, and they're most definitely benefiting from it.
Well, what project have we voted on in the past 12
That
months that
hasn't
was
been.
not in Concord?
There you go. So, I think that's the point you're trying to make.
It is.
I was going to ask about the Charlotte Regional Partners, so I'm glad you guys already talked about that one. For the All-Star race, there have been some tweaks on that. I would hope that you would evaluate that dollar amount and see what the receivables are for the race, and
Sure.
if that still stays the same, that's the same impact.
Right. There was a decision this year to not hold the, what was that event called? The Pit Crew Challenge, yeah. So that changed it. I will tell you, Speed Street will be 20 years old next year, so my guess is they're going to be more than that. And from our standpoint, it seems like we were maybe 12,000 on that a few years ago, and then we were 10, and now we're 7,500. So we scaled it back even before the Pit Crew Challenge departed. So I still feel we certainly get great value for that in a lot of different ways, although you commit a lot to it.
I didn't realize that all we have in front of us
Sure.
is this, so I don't have a good timeline on it. So.
Sure.
There was an analysis done on that, and the value that was recognized is substantially less. So that's
Well, I
something-
mean, Speed Street's all over in Charlotte, so we're
What
not.
I'm saying
getting-
is the deliverables.
deliverables,
That
that's
is,
true.
that can be attributed to Cabarrus County was less than half of that number. So it just needs to be, that their board needs to vet it and decide what they think is appropriate.
Well, and I chair the Speed Street 600 Festival Board, and we have had 2 long meetings on the issue. And the local organizing committee can completely go away, and all of us stop funding it, and those few things that are there could go away as well, without impacting necessarily the all-star race or the 10 days of speed or the whole experience.
Well, I just think that's like any other expense. You have to evaluate and make sure that you're getting your money's worth out of it, so. And I don't know if this is a staff request, but can we get the correct draft budget?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We'll send it to Megan.
Okay. If you do that, that'd be great. If we could get it maybe by the work session next week.
Samantha
If at
can
all
push a
possible.
button and send it in the morning. Yeah, my mistake.
That's okay. I'd like to have the, just about everybody, other than today, we've asked for some updated information because things have changed. And we understand you start preparing budgets quite early, and then, we come in at this point in time, and obviously, we don't know what the legislature's going to do, so we're completely aware that things will change. We just like to have as much information as possible, so I'll pass that over to the staff. And any other questions, commissioners, that you have as far as the EDC goes?
Yeah, well, of course, we've been through my personal philosophy on the tax incentives, and, I certainly understand the role of the EDC to recruit business in, the purpose that your organization is charged to do. I understand that. My principal belief is that, it's not treating all businesses equally. A governing board gets to, decide which company gets a tax break and which company doesn't. And that's the underlying issue that I have. I certainly understand the thought process of incentives, to bring businesses in. That's, really where I have a problem. And, whenever I see projects like the Cellguard project that, the city and the county gave cash up front to a business, and then, we see on the news that they're laying off 200 employees a while back, that's where I, really have a, issue. And Corning, they received tax incentives the first time they opened and then shut down after, or reduced operations. So, we see that sort of role. And, with the partnerships, the regional partnerships that we were talking about going away, do you see local partnerships going away maybe eventually? I know that wouldn't be in your best interest.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure that it would be in the state's best interest unless we all think that Raleigh can make the best decisions for us at a local level.
Right.
I would thank you and recognize, obviously, that there are many who believe your position is valid. As I listened to the hearing yesterday, I think there were 3 representatives who each said, Secretary Decker, I want you to know that I am morally opposed, viscerally opposed, completely opposed to the issue of incentives. We take taxpayer money, and so it's not just you.
Right,
Right.
certainly.
And it's at all levels of government. And at all levels of government, and at the Supreme Court and district courts and state courts have all upheld that they are valid. So not just because something is a law doesn't make it necessarily right,
Certainly.
but that is the law of the land and has been upheld. And unless we just say we don't want to be in that game anymore, which
Well-
would impoverish us.
Well, potentially. I mean, that's where the gray area is. And that's where, the setup between the county and the EDC being a contractual basis, it feels like to me that, we fund the EDC to come lobby us for taxpayer money. And, I know that I was no part of that setup, and I know that was done well before my time. But I've always seen, an issue with that. But I would like to ask you, what's your involvement with the Cabarrus jobs now?
I attend some of their public meetings.
Okay.
And, you know, I think last time I was on a panel, I think they've just met twice publicly.
Okay.
I know they meet as a group. I don't meet with them. I don't contribute financially. I have no relationship to them other than I'm friends with them.
Right. And so that is a PAC, correct?
As far as I know, the Cabarrus Jobs now is a 527 political action committee.
Right.
Formed to pursue issue-related policy, not candidate support.
Correct. Okay, not candidate support.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
I think that's all a 527 can do, is pursue issues like jobs.
Okay. Well, that's, where I attended the previous meeting. That's where I was a little concerned, seeing a number of government officials at a PAC meeting. I mean, this is a organization that's raising money for political action. I mean, that's what the PAC is, and I see government officials there, and that's where I'm a little concerned. It gets into a gray area. You were in charge of the program last time, and seeing, seeing someone that is being contracted by government funds, majority government funds, being involved in a political action committee is very concerning to me.
Well, as it should be, but that is not the case here. I was asked to moderate a panel and be on a panel, which I did. I didn't advocate for any policy, didn't ask for any funds, didn't ask for a collection, and I've made no political contribution to them at all.
But that is the underlying point. I mean, that's what it falls down to. That's why I'm saying it's a very gray area coming to.
Well, I will tell you, it is not gray to me.
Okay.
And be glad to give you the right to disagree with that.
I do. Yes, sir.
What we really need is a flat tax and a fair tax, and we can do away with most of this stuff.
So the gentleman says.
Thank you.
I'd like to respond to Commissioner Easter's comments. I do disagree. I think that it is, when we have, and I was at the same meeting you were at, and participated on the panel as well. I think that we, as elected officials, as well as staff, have an obligation to respond to any group of citizens, whether it be a political action group, a church group, a garden club, or whatever the case may be, that would like to have information about our roles in government. I feel that we have a responsibility to do that. It doesn't mean we have to agree with their philosophy or their cause, but we can provide that information. So it's not a gray area to me either.
Okay, because I wasn't writing fast enough. Can you tell me when Margie starts again?
June 17.
June 17th, the day of our regular meeting, that Monday?
Yes.
Well, I would like to extend an invitation that you come to our meetings, you provide us with a lot of information. So I would like to extend an invitation to Margie to, if she can and she's available. I hate to give her a really, really long day, but it would be nice if she's available and can come. And you could introduce her.
That'd be great. Thank you.
So that we can all have an opportunity to say hello to her and welcome her to Cabarrus County.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Any other comments, questions, commissioners? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Okay, commissioners, we already had our break, so we're going to keep on going. The next up is fire districts. So I'm going to call on Steve Langer to come up first, please. We do have a few of the representatives based on budget requests. Not everybody from the volunteer fire departments are here. Steve, I apologize I didn't get a chance to ask you before we started the meeting, but could you help me and the general public that will watch this Explain a little bit about, for those that are not in a fire district and don't really have an understanding that we have the volunteer fire departments, can you explain to me what your role as the fire marshal is with those, as the county's role with those volunteer fire departments, and what do you do in your role as far as interacting with them?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
You know, outside the municipalities, the corporate limits of the cities, we have established fire tax districts where we have volunteer fire departments that the county contracts with to provide the service. Those departments are mostly solely funded through that fire tax. And the fire marshal's office is kind of a liaison office to the departments, between the county and the departments, and we work with those departments to help them with future planning, training, any needs that they may have, and help and assist them with fires that they have, incidents that they have. You know, if a department has a hazmat incident, then we're there helping them, getting resources that they may need to mitigate any incident that they have.
Okay, so if there's an issue, I think there's kind of two areas. If there's a fire, then you would know that they were called out for a fire.
Yes,
And then-
the fire department would be dispatched through our communications center. You know, we monitor those channels, so we hear the calls. The departments respond to, again, mitigate any incident that they have, and then if they need our assistance for that event, then they call us and we go out and assist them. We do have some incidents like working fires. We have a protocol in place where our office is automatically dispatched on working fire incidents to get there and assist the departments.
Okay. And I know that in previous meetings, Commissioner Morris, you would not have been here for all of those. We've talked a lot about standardizing equipment, because if one volunteer unit responds and they have this type of oxygen tanks and respirators, and another one comes, they're not always compatible. So this one runs out and needs another tank, but this is a tank that doesn't work. So you've also been working to try to standardize some of that? Is that equipment across the districts?
Yes, we've been working with the departments through the fire study, and we've met with the departments, went through the recommendations of the study, and through that we are working to establish a Cabarrus County Fire Service Board that is made up of our fire chiefs in our office, and we've worked to create some bylaws. So in the future, we actually probably need to come before this board to give an update as to where we are on the fire study and where we are at with that board. And already we've started working on joint purchasing and looking at ways to standardize equipment throughout the different departments. The one thing you're referring to is the SCBA, the breathing apparatus that they use for fires, and working to try to standardize that equipment, as you said, as one department responds to another, through OSHA requirements, making sure that if a person from another department grabs a mask off of a different department's truck, that they've have been tested and meet the OSHA standards for that equipment.
Any of the vehicles that the volunteer fire departments use, those are purchased by the funds that are generated from the fire tax in that district?
That's correct.
Do you help the fire departments determine either the equipment that they should have, or, I don't know, I'm sure some of that equipment's pretty old. Do you help them
We do try to
decide
help.
what maintenance should be? Do you decide that help them, that they need to replace something? I mean, what kind of impact do you have on equipment that they have, like big equipment?
Well, we're working towards that in working with our departments and trying to, I know over the last couple of years, you've heard a lot about ISO ratings and lowering those ISO ratings. So, we're definitely moving forward and trying to work with our departments and looking at equipment replacement, making sure that the department is, purchasing equipment that's going to best suit their needs to help gain the most point value through that ISO process that's needed for the district.
But you don't go and say, you have to purchase this
No.
I don't know the different kinds of equipment, so I'm kind of at a loss. But you don't go and say, you have to purchase this vehicle and it has to be done this year. You might give suggestions to them and help them figure out a way, maybe with their budget process that we're going to talk about tonight, things like that, so that they can manage those purchases. Would that be a better
Exactly.
statement?
An example is I believe we have 2 departments in the county that are looking to replace equipment this coming year, and they're both looking at Pierce apparatus. And so, that would be something that we're wanting to work with them to try to find other departments that may be looking to spec that same type of equipment and get a better return on purchasing that apparatus.
As you know, Concord High School has a fire academy, too. I know a number of their students are members of different volunteer units.
Yes.
Do you guys help? Does Fire Marshal's office help at the high school with their
Our office has went
classes?
out and helped do an investigation awareness class for the academy.
And that was the class is a direct result of the need for more firefighters, both on a volunteer basis and on a full-time basis that might be with the city of Kannapolis or city of Concord.
Definitely. It's a benefit to, it creates a recruitment pool for our volunteer departments as well as future full-time firemen for our paid departments.
Okay. And I don't know if you heard me say earlier, these meetings are being televised, so a lot of times we ask questions to try to make sure that the general population kind of has an overview or an understanding of what different departments are. So that was the main reason behind my questions. And the only other thing that I do want to mention is there is a group, you meet quarterly?
Right now, we're meeting as often as necessary. Once we get the bylaws brought before this board and approved, then we would actually start meeting quarterly, yes.
Okay. Isn't there an advisory panel that's supposed to meet every 3 months?
We have the Firemen's Association Board of Directors
That one.
and the association that does meet quarterly, yes.
Okay. And when's that next meeting?
That next meeting is July, it'll be the second Thursday in July.
Can you make sure that I get notified?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I did not get notified for the April meeting.
Okay.
And I missed it, and it just completely got away from me. So I am the liaison, and I do want to try my best to get to those quarterly meetings. So if you can make sure that that I get notified for those, I appreciate it.
We'll do it.
Okay.
I can
So-
add one thing.
Sure.
The fire marshal, as well as the emergency management, is working along with the group. They do provide other services than just working with the individual departments. But we are working on some performance standards. The contracts this year have been revised. In addition to their fire tax district, you're also they receive sales tax, a portion of the sales tax within their district as well. And then you also provide staffing grants to several of the departments now. That it's a $30,000 grant that allows them to use that towards keeping at least 1 or 2 staff members on site, so that if the alarm goes off during peak or even during non-peak hours, that somebody can get some of the trucks rolling and then meet the volunteers at the site. So just wanted to there are 3 funding mechanisms there for them at this time, plus some do some of their own fundraisers as well.
Commissioners, do you have any general, some of that, Steve, was also to try to help bring you may know all about volunteer fire departments. I know that's an area I haven't had to deal with until getting on this board, so I always try to get educated on them. So, does anybody have any general questions for this time? Hey, Steve, are you going to present budgets, or are we going to call up the?
What I'd like to
how
do
we
is,
gonna do that?
yeah, we would just call the department up in whatever order you have, and we would let them present to you their needs and justification for the increase request that they have.
I do have one
Okay.
question
Yes.
before we move on to that. Following up with what you said, each department's not required to purchase, as you were talking about trying to make everything uniformed and having standardized equipment, each department's not required to follow those recommendations, or it is?
Well, there's nothing out there that requires them to actually have to have the same type of equipment. Really, when it comes to the equipment, talking about apparatus, specific, the department just has to have a tanker and an engine to meet the state ISO 9S requirements. And, those trucks can be spec'd in many different ways with different pump capacity and tank capacity, and
Right.
so they do not have to be the
Okay.
same.
And so it doesn't have to go through your office before something's purchased?
No.
Okay.
It's kind of hard
Yeah,
to put the demands on volunteers, isn't it?
To a degree, yes, sir, it is. They're volunteers, and, they volunteer their time, and we see across the country volunteerism declining due to the demands that keep being placed on volunteer departments from training and so on.
Yeah, I guess my point with asking the questions, I don't know how much a breathing apparatus, how much does a breathing apparatus cost?
I'm going to reach back to Chief Holloway,
Ballpark.
about 5,000.
Okay, so for a $5,000 piece of equipment, if you're buying that equipment because you need to, then it would be good if your equipment was the same as the volunteer fire department next door, that when you get more than one called out, if two get called out, that you don't have to worry about the fact that the equipment is not compatible, versus, and I will not ask you the price of a tanker,
Well, I think
$100,000. I don't know. I think that's a different, maybe that's. a-
350,000.
Huh?
350,000.
Okay, let's go 350,000. I think that's a different discussion on something that
Last
expensive.
year, they were trying to decide on hat color.
Yes. Well, and I think, I'll be honest with you, I think the one that's in charge should have a different color hat than somebody like me that's running up hysterical, will know which hat to look for. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, that's how I would be probably. If my house is on fire, I'm gonna be looking for,
But the fire study did come back with some standards of both from advantages of bulk purchasing, and in order to do that, then you would try to use like equipment. Also, like equipment, like I said, if you're doing mutual aid and your air pack runs out or most of them run out, you need supplies, then it would be nice to have those in place. As far as the helmets, nothing in there is to take away from the individuality of a department, but it is to set some kind of countywide policy that they can all work in. So when they are on the scenes, just for safety purposes, they know who is in charge, who's responsible for this, and that kind of stuff. So
Well, it would be more cost-effective if they all had the same equipment, I think.
yes, sir, it would. Yes, sir, it would.
okay, so the first one we have is cold water, fire and rescue. We'll ask you guys to come up and join us, please. And if you will, please tell us who you are and what your role is with your department, and
I'm James Preddy. I'm the chief of the Coldwater Fire Department.
Raymond Blackwelder Jr., I'm the president of Coldwater Volunteer Fire. Where do you want to start?
wherever you want to start. We've got this in our, let's see.
Well, that's too far.
Yeah, you're welcome to
Okay,
jump in
guys,
on how you
yeah,
want to
if you
do
can
this.
just go, your budget last year, you received, you currently have an existing tax rate?
We have existing tax rate of 5 cents on the $100.
Right.
We've had this for 20-plus years, so we haven't been running before the board asking for more money. We usually do a good job of keeping an eye on where we're headed. So we're asking for 1 cent this year. Last year, we stayed, when the reevaluation came in, we stayed down just to give everybody a break. And now we're looking at the county's going to MCT, the mobile computer terminals, stuff like this it's a real expense to us. So over the next 5 years, we're going to try to get on board with this, and actually before 5 years. So that would help us. And also the SCBA's you were speaking about, all this stuff has lifespan expiration dates and roll over so all this needs to be replaced in our next 5-year budget or so. So that's why we're asking for it, and hopefully we'll grant it. So,
Speaking of the 30,000, would they give us for the grant for staff, and we do, you use that part during the day, then we're actually staffing one person 24 hours a day, so we're picking up the rest of it out of our costs.
Staff, do you know what 1 penny in the Coldwater Fire Department generates?
I think it's $30,000.
$30,000. $30,128. Okay. Commissioners, questions or comments that you have about Coldwater? Commissioner Morris, we determine the tax rate, and that's the reason they come to us, is we would have to make a motion to raise the tax rate for their district.
In your budget, you have a reference of $80,000 in debt service.
Right, we're still paying on that engine we bought several years ago. We're still paying on that. And
How much, okay, on regards, when will your debt be paid off?
2017, I think, is when it's paid off. 2017 is when it's paid off.
Thereabouts.
Right.
Okay. And you said that you have not had an increase in
Over 20 years. Right.
And last year, when the revenue, you kept a revenue neutral
Right,
tax rate.
Right, we just stayed neutral, we didn't go.
Yeah, they did not go revenue neutral.
They kept the same tax rate. They did not
They-
request
they did not
the
revenue-
increase
we didn't
to
go
be
up.
revenue neutral.
I have no further questions, and I fully support the increase to 5 to 6 cents.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Things going well for you? Anything general? Having any big events we need to come to?
Things are
We
going
like ice
pretty
cream
well.
socials and barbecues and things. We're all open for
Yeah.
food events, you know, you just have to.
Well, I would like to say, I said, I appreciate you talking about the fire academy and different things, because I think that's the future of Cabarrus County. The county saves a lot of money by having volunteer firemen naturally. But, you know, if you don't hook guys or girls nowadays, young, you don't get them. When they get 18, they're gone. Kim Preddy and myself both started in 1974. We were 14 years old. And the chief at Coldwater, Luther Barrier, wanted to start something because he knew the guys were getting older. And so we've been around for 39 years. And there's 5 or 6 of us that's still not a little group. So, yeah, it helps the county to do things that, like the fire academy and different things that get young guys. Because we got a couple of fire academy guys at Coldwater. So we appreciate anything the county does in that, supporting that.
Actually, I believe I saw a T-shirt today that had Coldwater on it, and I saw another one that had Allen on it. So that's what made me think about it, in all honesty, that they were sporting their shirts to represent your group. So, okay. If there's no other question, everything's fine. I mean, do you have anything you want to? Again, this is going to be on TV. Anything coming up? Do you do 4th of July or anything you want your people in your district to know about? Do they need to come by and say hey?
They're welcome to come by anytime they want to.
Our doors are always open, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
That sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me get to the next one. Hang on a second. Mount Pleasant, okay. Yeah, Mount Pleasant Fire Department is our next one to come up. It's page 56.
Do you want to start with the notes or the PowerPoint? Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Always nice to have you. If you will both introduce yourself so that everybody knows, and we'll let you.
My name's Randy Holloway, and I'm representing the town of Mount Pleasant, and along with Jimmy Overcash, the Mount Pleasant Fire Department. So we thank you for allowing us to come tonight and present to you. We have an overview here, and I'll move along as quickly as I can. I know you're running a little bit behind. The current budget for Mount Pleasant Fire Department is $472,000. You can see the rural tax rate is currently at a little over 6 cents, generating about $230,000. Sales tax from the county, and we certainly appreciate that sales tax. Very helpful, and the staffing grant. And then from the town of Mount Pleasant, to be honest with you, until I was asked to help the town back several months ago, I'd always been told the town didn't contribute its fair share to the fire department. I think there was a misconception of simply looking at what the town paid, if you would, and what the rural district paid, and they weren't really looking at the rate. So the city residents in the town that pay a 50-cent tax rate, just under 13 cents of that is going to the fire department. The rural district is paying a little over 6 cents, and I live in the rural district. So we're asking for your consideration for the next slide, please. The proposed 2014 budget, we are asking for a rather significant increase, and I'll run through this and try to give you justification for it. We're asking for that rate to go up 4 cents. The town has agreed to tick theirs up a little bit to 13 cents. We have the estimated sales tax from your finance department, assuming the staffing grant will still be there. That will increase the budget to $638,692. The significant changes in the budget, and that's $165,000, just under $166,000 increase. The significant increase is to add some additional staffing and to purchase a new tanker. Heard the fire marshal talking about the equipment. The tanker that we currently use is over 20 years old. It is not very roadworthy, and the rural district needs another tanker. We'll use that current tanker either as a reserve, or we're thinking about probably leasing it to Northeast Volunteer Department, who currently doesn't have a tanker. I think they have a grant in, and they're trying to acquire a tanker. So we have some uses for that current tanker we have, but it's not very roadworthy, to be honest. So if we could go to the next slide. The needs assessment justification, the current staffing is 2 paid personnel 24/7, and what they're doing is taking the staffing grant that you're providing for them, the sales tax, the total budget, and they have 24-hour coverage with 2 firefighters. That's about 42% of their current overall budget. We're proposing to go to 4 firefighters minimum, and I'll go through why we're asking for that. A 4 staffing crew is considered by all the national standards, National Fire Protection Association, OSHA, et cetera. That 4-member staffing is the minimum staffing that when the first unit arrives, they can immediately go into action. They don't have to wait. Unfortunately, years ago, North Carolina chose to exempt volunteer fire departments from having to meet OSHA standards for various reasons, but that was the state's choice to do that back in '92. Municipality doesn't have that option, but what happened is when those volunteer departments put that first paid person on, be it part-time, full-time, makes no difference, now they have to meet OSHA. And there's an OSHA standard that says that should be 4 members minimum first arriving for them to be able to go into operation. So currently we have 2 on that first out truck, and when they get there, they're having to wait for volunteers arriving in their pickup trucks or whatever to get there before they can go into action and extinguish the fire. So the 4 members will meet the 2 in, 2 out requirements. It meets all the national standards. And in fact, when you really look at the national standard, it says within 9 minutes, and this is difficult even for municipality to do, there should be 16 members assembled on the fire scene within the first 9 minutes after the alarm is sounded. Now that's difficult for a lot of folks to do, but the 4-member staffing is critical in that. That's a pump operator, someone overseeing the operation, the command officer if you would, and then 2 firefighters going in to either extinguish the fire, make a rescue, do what has to be done interior. If something happens and those 2 have to be rescued, that's where the 2 in, 2 out rule comes in. The 2 outside can leave their critical function, operating the pump and being in command of critical functions. But by the OSHA rule, they can leave that critical function, go in, make the rescue, and hopefully get those firefighters out. So that's where the 2 in, 2 out rule comes from. If we could go to the next slide, okay. I'm glad you cited the study. I applaud you for doing that, and you can see I've looked through it many times. I have all my little thumb notes in there. It's a great study. It's a good springboard and framework for us to move forward from. The study did recommend continuing to support the volunteerism that's out there and build on that. I agree on the Fire Academy. We're very proud of that program. One of the things we plan to do at Mount Pleasant this fall is to go to the high school and encourage students there to get in the program at Concord High, and hopefully we can capture those young folks before they get out in the job market and we lose them. But also in that county standard, it did say that they encourage the county and the volunteer departments to find creative ways to bolster the paid staffing because of volunteerism dropping off. Another example of that is, unfortunately, and I don't recall the timing, I will say it was a year or two ago, Cabarrus Rescue had to go out of business for that very same reason. They didn't have paid staffing, they had volunteers, and trying to get volunteers to answer all those calls is very difficult, so they chose just to go out of business. What Mount Pleasant does is a very creative way to provide for that staff, and they hire off-duty career firefighters from Charlotte, from Salisbury, from Albemarle, some from Concord, Kannapolis. They're already trained. They're not having to be paid benefits because they're receiving benefits from the career departments that they're in. We know they know how to fight fire because that's what they do for a living. So that's a very cost-effective way, so the town is paying those personnel $10 an hour and not having to pay any benefits. So that process takes advantage of the career firefighters' level of training, their EMT status, that type of thing. Next one, please. So the approval of this request would provide a fully staffed minimum response of 4 firefighters to really all of eastern Cabarrus County. We have a very good mutual aid program, and we all help each other. So when you look geographically at where Mount Pleasant is in the eastern part of the county, it is the mutual aid hub of the eastern side of the county. So they respond automatically to Northeast, to Georgeville, to Reimer, Coldwater, and Allen. Now they may extend beyond that, but those are some of the automatic responses they do very frequently. So this is actually going to give, with hopefully your approval, a minimum of 4-member crew responding automatically to all of eastern Cabarrus County, not just the Mount Pleasant district. And the next slide, if you can see, the Mount Pleasant area, you can actually see that the town there is in the white. It's kind of right in the center of the district, and the town is very small in comparison to the overall district, but that kind of represents the strategic location of the Mount Pleasant district as it relates to the eastern part of the county. Next slide. When you think about rural fire departments, many times you don't really think about how busy they are. Mount Pleasant Fire Department is a very busy department. Last year they ran 936 calls. I gave you some examples of Concord simply because I have easy access to those. Our Station 1 is the busiest station, a little over 2,000 calls, and then you see 2, but look at Station 4 that ran less calls than Mount Pleasant. Our Station 10 ran significantly less calls than Mount Pleasant, and we're doing that with a minimum of 4 people on every truck 24/7. So Mount Pleasant really isn't a rural department if you would think about it anymore. They're very busy, approaching 1,000 calls a year. That is a lot. It's a heavy call volume for a volunteer department. And I didn't have these numbers to share when I put this together, but I did look at Georgeville Fire Department, responded to 250 calls, and Harrisburg Station 2, which covers the rural area, 547, and I'll touch on the significance of that in just a second. Another significant value of adding, and one of the commissioners mentioned value, getting return on the investment earlier, is increasing the staffing. You need 2 things to fight a fire. You got to have people and water. If you don't have those 2 things, you can't fight a fire. And those are really the only things that really impress a fire. Not fancy trucks, not fancy stations, people, water. You have to have those 2 things. So with this increase in staffing, we are very positive we will lower the ISO rating in Mount Pleasant. But not only in Mount Pleasant, we'll also lower it in all of eastern Cabarrus County for those other departments that are pursuing that, and I encourage them to do it. I know the Fire Marshal's Office has been doing that. The way that works under automatic aid, and the difference of automatic aid and mutual aid, automatic aid is if Northeast Fire Department is being dispatched to a structure fire, Mount Pleasant is being dispatched simultaneously, and maybe Reimer maybe along with them simultaneously. If Mount Pleasant can travel from their station and reach that district line in less than 5 miles, and they can on every one of those departments that I just mentioned, those departments get credit for that truck and those 4 people just like it belongs to them because it's on automatic aid. They're on the same dispatch system. They talk to each other. They train together. So Northeast Fire Department, they're using that for just as an example, they get credit for that crew from Mount Pleasant just like it belongs to Northeast. That applies to Georgeville. That applies to Coldwater that you just heard from. So our goal at Mount Pleasant in the next 12 to 24 months will be to lower the rural rating from a class 9 to a 6 And those ratings, just so that you know, run from a 1 to a 10. There are 49,000 fire departments in the country. There are only 41 Class 1s. The Class 10 is no protection at all. And the rural districts right now are Class 9s. We can do better than that. The goal is a Class 6. When you get to Class 6, you've pretty much helped the residential customer all you're going to help. From a 9 to a 6, and I'll give you an illustration in a second, the average person's homeowner is going to go down about 24%, a significant reduction in homeowners. From the 6 to the 1, most insurance companies don't give a reduction for the homeowner, but every class that you go down helps commercial, industrial, and I'm proud to say, since I've worked for Concord, that we are going to get our Class 2 rating in effect June 1st. So all the commercial and businesses in the town of, city of Concord will go down. So our goal at Mount Pleasant is a 6 in the rural area and a 4 in town, since there are some small industries and commercial businesses in town that will benefit from that lower rating. The town right now is currently a 6, the rural area is a 9. Next slide, please. Here's some examples of just a generic $250,000 frame dwelling. This is from Farm Bureau Insurance. In the town, if that were located, it would be $504 a year. If you slide it out to the rural district, same fire department, it's $735. It's because in the rural district, there are no hydrants. So you have to do a tanker shuttle, which we're going to do, we're working on right now. So you can see the average cost quote from 4 different insurance companies for that same $250,000 frame dwelling was $647 if it were in town, $822 if it's in a rural district. That's an average savings of $175. So if you look at a 4-cent tax increase for that home, that would result in a $100 increase, but their homeowner's insurance is going to go down $175, so they net, I think you mentioned earlier, return on investment. There's where the return on investment's at. Yes, we're asking for a tax increase, but we're going to lower that insurance rating, and they will see a savings, and that savings will be there year after year after year. And that next one actually used some actual examples. My home on Lambert Road, I will see a $154 per year savings. Jeff Williams is another firefighter at Mount Pleasant, lives in the rural area. He would see $112 per year savings. And James Norris, who lives close to Chief Overcash, also in the rural district, would see $130 per year savings. And that would be after the 4-cent tax increase if you choose to approve that for us. Next one, please. This is just a listing of where the current rates are at. And I pointed out Harrisburg and Georgeville earlier. Georgeville's rate is at a little over 9 cents, and they responded to about 250 calls last year. Harrisburg Rural is at 11 cents, a little over 11 cents, and in that rural district, they responded to 547 calls, and Mount Pleasant is at 66.3. We're asking for it to go to 10.33, and we responded to 936 calls last year, with that continuing to go up. So if I could just in summary cover the benefits of the proposal. The increased staffing provides a higher level of fire and rescue capabilities in all of eastern Cabarrus County. They respond to a lot of EMS calls. Highway 49 and Highway 73 intersect Mount Pleasant. Those are busy highways. They have a lot of vehicle accidents. They respond with EMS and a lot of calls, a lot of cardiac calls. 4-member staffing on that first arriving engine gives EMS a lot of support. For example, you have a vehicle accident with a pin in. You have to pull a hose line to make sure if the vehicle catches on fire, the firefighters are standing there ready to put it out. You got patient care going on, extrication. The paramedics are in the vehicle starting IVs and doing their thing. The firefighters are trying to extricate. So that 4-member crew is very valuable for EMS, for example, on a vehicle accident. The increased staffing provides a much higher level of customer service, particularly on emergency medical care. The increased staffing provides a higher level of firefighter safety. I've been in the fire service 46 years this past February, and I'm proud to say I've never had a firefighter injured serious enough to spend the night at the hospital, and I would like to help keep that. And Mount Pleasant had a very good track record. Firefighter safety is paramount. We're sending people into the atmosphere that everybody else is trying to get out of. So everybody else is getting out, we're going in. Firefighter safety is paramount. It meets the OSHA standard, and it's something that we really need to be aware of for particularly the town. It has created a concern in trying to meet OSHA, and we're not doing that currently with only 2 people on board that first out unit. We'll increase the staffing, we'll lower the rating, and again, not only for Mount Pleasant, I encourage Georgeville and Northeast and Coldwater and everybody surrounding. I know Steve's been working with them on trying to lower that ISO rating, and I'm sure they're going to do that. And also, don't that it really makes that big a difference, but it does create a little more parity between the town residents that are paying 13 cents and the rural residents, myself, that's only paying 6 cents. If we take it up to 10, the town residents are paying a little more, but we've got a little closer parity there. The town residents are getting a little quicker response because of where the station sits, and they can respond to almost all the town residents within 5 minutes, and it probably takes about 6 or 7 minutes to get out to me, but that's just kind of the lay of the land. You can't put a fire station on every corner, but it does bring a little more parity. I'll run through that as quick as I can.
There you go. Okay,
I'll
I'm
be
on.
glad to answer questions.
Let the county manager, do you have?
Yeah,
some-
Randy,
Go for
just some questions real quick
Sure.
for the board's purpose. Number of calls in the town versus the county district?
I don't know that I have that breakdown. Chief, do you have
There
that?
was 700 in the rural and the other 236 was in the town.
What's a penny worth inside the town versus the rural district?
Mr. Downs, inside the town is just under 13, no, I'm sorry, just under 13,000. A penny is just under 13,000 in town, and in the rural district, I think it's just a tick under or just a tick over 40,000.
And forgive me because I'm having a hard time reading these
Yeah.
blue things. Question, by improving the staff numbers, you're saying it will assist to go from 9 to a 6? In order to get these insurance rates that you're talking about, you're going to have to get to 6. What else are you guys proposing to do besides staffing, or is it the rest of it's probably water?
Got to have some more water. We're already working on establishing water points. Chief Overcash has been out. We've been using the county's GIS site, which is very helpful, looking at aerial photographs, and you can see ponds. What you really need, and I'm fortunate I've been teaching that in North Carolina since 1978, and I know a lot about how to get the rating down. And in the rural area where there are no hydrants, you have to have a lot of water points, you have to have a lot of ponds and creeks, and they're out there. And everybody we've talked to so far, when we say we're going to lower your insurance rate, and we're going to save you some money, they're falling over themselves wanting to help us put a draft point in. It's basically, if they have a pond that has 30,000 gallons of water, and this room would probably hold 100,000 gallons of water, it doesn't take something the size of Lake Norman for it to be an approved water point. They're everywhere. It's a matter of getting out, doing the work. You have to put some gravel down and that type of thing, get the county out. We're using the county ag folks. I forget who was going to come out and do the certification.
Soil and water.
Soil and water, I'm sorry. You have to verify that the pond holds a certain amount of water, but yes, sir, we have to get out and develop water points. So the tankers are dropping the water at the scene. They go down the road to where there's a pond, there's a mutual aid pumper sitting at that pond. They're drafting water from the pond, they put it back in the tanker goes back to the scene, and that's a process that's labor intensive. So again, you got to have people at the water point, somebody driving the tanker, firefighters at the scene, but that is very doable. It is very doable.
So establishing those new water points, that's going to be within the next fiscal year, or is that over a couple of years?
We're working on that, and I would hope to be coming back before you this time next year and telling you that we've had our inspection and we're anticipating the rating back.
You're anticipating what back?
The rating to come
So
back.
rating.
Yes, so the rating to go down to a 6.
Chief, I want to confirm, you said 700 of the calls were in the rural?
I think that's right. Don't hold me to that.
And on your total call numbers, does that include mutual aid?
Yes,
The 900
Yes,
and
I'm
some
sure it
calls?
does. Yes.
So it's mutual.
Yeah, that wouldn't be just calls in the district. That would be all calls, including mutual aid.
Commissioners, questions that you have?
How many of those calls were actually fire calls?
Very
Last
low.
year, I think it ran 60-40.
The rest of them for accident and
60% fire, 40% accidents?
Pretty
I
much.
just want to make sure we're the 60/40.
Yeah, 60/40 fire, 60% fire, 40% medical.
Okay.
Tell me about your debt service. When is that coming off the books?
September of this year.
Yes. Okay, so you're going to be freeing up $88,000 September of this year.
The town has committed, and thanks for reminding me to comment on that, the station is in need of repair and renovations. Most of the volunteer stations are not designed to have sleeping quarters, and right now we're having to have the people that's on 24/7 sleeping in the day room, and we'll deal with that. But the station needs some renovations, so the town is committed to put those funds aside in a capital reserve account to help do some renovations to the station. It is in desperate need of renovations.
What's the Concord tax rate as it relates to Concord Station number 4 and 10?
Overall, of the 48-cent city rate, 18 cents of that goes to the fire department.
And do you apportion it out to the Concord stations?
No, it's one overall budget, $17 million, which is 18 cents of the city tax rate.
Okay. How much is the overhead and the expense at Concord Station 4 and 10?
I'm not really sure.
Okay. Because what I'm saying is that we're looking at a comparison of basically Concord Station 4.
Right.
So, in my mind, first off, I mean, I'm not comfortable in raising the tax rate 4 cents. And I'm trying to figure out if it does get increased, what would be the justification. In regards to the water points, I'm concerned because we're talking about a 12-month process. And right now, we had a fire department come to us last year. We increased the rate saying that they're going to do X, Y, and Z. They haven't done it. And that should not be held against y'all, but at the same time, we got to be careful about what we're doing.
Right.
And that's my concern. And with the disparity between a penny on the city tax rate going $13,000 and the rural, that's 3 times. That's really hitting the county people 3 times as much, and that concerns me. That's more than that's more than the numbers of being run. And then also the debt coming off of 88.5. You got that debt coming off, and how is that going to be apportioned? I understand. I appreciate the answer. I just have some concerns about going up 4 cents with the belief that it will go down. I mean, I would think it's going to go down, but I don't know how much it's going to go down.
Sure,
and nobody's going to know.
I completely understand that, and that commitment has to be that if the rate is increased, and I would encourage that across the board. If you're going to increase the rate, every department should be working to lower that ISO rating. And I'll just make a carte blanche statement. Every department in Cabarrus County should have at least a Class 6 rating. There is no department in Cabarrus County that cannot get a Class 6.
When was the last time? I thought that Mount Pleasant came to us a couple of times in the past 2 years.
2 years ago.
2 years ago they came for an increase at that time.
And then last year came for the revenue neutral.
So twice, so each year?
Each year, the last 2 years.
Okay. Is there a reason why it's a yearly process of asking for more and more money?
Mr. White, I wasn't involved in that last year. I think last year they were asking for money to redo the front apron because of a sewer line.
That was 2 years ago.
Yeah, that was 2 years ago. Last year was just
And
the
a drop
revenue
tank.
neutral.
Yeah. 2 years ago was a platform and then a drop tank.
Right.
I remember that.
That was a good one.
We're not asking for a drop tanker.
Well, the presenter didn't know what a drop tank was.
Yeah, we'll be looking at...
And it was not the chief. I will tell you that right now.
I know who it was.
We will be purchasing a tanker, and it will be a tanker much like Coldwater Fire Department and Odell have purchased that
Yes, sir.
are some of the least expensive that you can purchase in about the $250,000 range. And I would say on Mount Pleasant's behalf, They support what you're trying to do with the county study. We support the standardized equipment. Concord is purchasing off of group purchases right now. We've been purchasing on the Wake County, and we've saved about $400,000 on the last 2 trucks that we purchased. I support that. Mount Pleasant supports that. I encourage you to continue down that path. That's a way to save some tax dollars, and we all need to have our equipment working together. If you're going to have an aggressive mutual aid program, then you need everything to work together. So I personally totally support that.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you very much.
The town's proposing an increase?
A slight increase, Mr. Downs. They're at a little under 13 cent now, and we asked them to take it up to 13 cent. So again, a clarification, the town residents are paying the equivalent of 13 cent per $100 valuation. The county residents are paying 6 cent, a little over 6 cent per $100. So the town residents are paying twice as much as the county residents are paying. And it would still be paying more even if we took the tax rate up 4 cents.
But at them paying twice as much, they'd have to pay 3 times as much to be equal to what's generated by, for every 1 penny in the city, they have to do 3 cents to match the 1 cent in the county. They're 13,000, we're 40,000.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I'm going to ask what you just asked in a different way. Do you know if the town of Mount Pleasant is changing their tax rate based on their budget discussions?
Not that I'm aware of.
Because based on what you have in here, if they raise it up to 13, what you're saying is 13 cents, that's going to cost them about $3,400 more. They're not really, it's just rounding it, because right now, they're, according to what's in here, it's at 12.73. So they're not, the town of Mount Pleasant, unless they're doing something that's not showing up in here. I don't know if they're planning on renovating and doing some things that aren't being identified, but it doesn't appear that they really are putting more money into.
It was about $6,000 more. I just rounded it to 13 cents just for presentation. In the staffing process, we tried to be as efficient as possible. So the paid staffing would be there 4 people Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., which is the most critical time for volunteers. They're at work. So it's tough to get the volunteers out. So 7 a.m., 7 p.m., there would be 4 paid people there. At 7 p.m., one person would leave, and a volunteer would come in and work a 12-hour shift and receive a small stipend. So we asked the town to pay the additional dollars we needed to get us to the amount we needed, which was $12,000 for the stipend. So, and the volunteers are willing to do that. So they would be pulling a couple 3 12-hour shifts, weekends and nights when they're available, they're not working their jobs, and they would get a small stipend. It would be $24 for working a 12-hour shift. We have to keep it at that amount to keep out of a Fair Labor Standards issue and not create an employee-employee relationship with those volunteers. So all that has been thought out and calculated. So that's where we come up with 4-member staffing 24/7. The volunteers will be helping evenings and weekends when they're available to help with that.
Right, I was taking on actually page 62, I don't know if you want to find that one, but where it has the budget, town tax rate is .1273 of $159,314. If it goes up to 13 cents, that's at .73 times their rate of $12,507 per cent, means that they're going to contribute an extra $3,400 to the total amount. The rural taxpayers currently are paying $230,000, and if you go up 4 cents, then $392,077 plus the sales tax that comes back of 53. So I'm just saying, at this point, at that point in time, the town's paying 162, and the other residents are paying, you know, 390,000. I think that's, I'm trying to figure out, I think, which is what you were trying to get at, is you can't really compare the penny, because the penny's not, a penny here and a penny there are not equal. And so we're just trying to figure out, make sure that,
Sure.
so
But
what
that-
you're, of the whole budget though, you're saying you got a staffing grant, the rural tax is 3/4 of the budget,
Yes.
of the total budget.
But that really comes down to geographic size. The town itself is very small in comparison to the overall district they protect. So when you look at that comparison, it's really, if you erase the town boundary and said the people that live within a mile of the station are paying 13 cents per $100, and the people that live beyond a mile, if you would in the rural district, are paying 6 cents. So it's not to me, not the amount that's coming from the town or the amount that's coming from the rural district, it's what each individual taxpayer is paying. So the folks that live in the town are paying the equivalent of 13 cents towards the fire department, and the people that live in the rural area, myself, is paying a little over 6 cents to the same department.
Yeah, but the dollar amount out of it, I'm trying to balance that out too. I understand what you're saying.
And I think that's
I think that the town of Mount Pleasant
I
needs
think
to
that's where
look
the
at how
perception
they're funding
came,
it.
that I had been told over the years until I actually took a look at it, that the town wasn't contributing their fair share. So when I looked at it and said, well, if you look at how much a penny generates, then the town residents, out of their 50-cent tax rate, 13 cents of that is going to the fire department.
Right, but it could be that in order to truly sustain the fire department, the town budget needs to put more in, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. I think that's where we're coming from, is the town, not based on the tax rate, because I just don't think you can compare the two values, because they represent such a wide difference in the values. But is the town really putting enough in there? And, I mean, I don't have a map to show how many residents out there, how many of those areas the value is the buildings versus the value is in, 200 acres of land.
Right.
So I'm paying tax on 200 acres of land, and I guess if I have a fire in my pasture, then I'm going to, you know what I'm saying, versus the structures that are out there. And I know we had this conversation either last year or the year before, and all but Commissioner Morris will remember that. We went round and round and round on where the buildings are located and what's really going to burn, where are the roads located that you're making calls on for accidents. Are those more in the congested areas? Are they more on the, 49 going through, 29, 73 going through, those type things, just to kind of weigh it out. So that's kind of where I was looking at it, because it's a substantial increase to go up 4 cents. Commissioners Neesmer, Burridge, or Morris, any of you have questions at this point? These are the experts.
You got to consider the fact that there's more people in the rural area than there is in the city, and they are paying a difference. The rural area only paying half of what the city's paying.
It's the other way.
I think it's the other way. The value of the penny is different, but the value of a penny in the county is $40,000. The value of a penny in the city limits is $12,500. So if I'm paying a penny in the county, based on the value of the property. So if you go up a penny in the rural area, it's going to generate $40,000 for the department. If you go up a penny, if Mount Pleasant goes up a penny, it'll generate $12,000. So, yeah, that's where it's kind of a inverse relationship, I guess. So.
But it's eventually going to come down to whether or not you want the fire department operating out there, because they can't keep doing what they're doing. Volunteers is not going to be there.
Well, that's been a concern all over the country.
That's right.
And volunteers.
There's one thing that I forgot to mention, and Chief Overcash may want to weigh in. There was a working fire recently, about a month ago, on a Saturday night, which would typically be the time that you would expect a very good volunteer turnout. Including the 2 paid members, there were 8-member turnout. And when 2 units from Concord got there, that brought 7 or 8 additional people. But until the units from Concord got there, which is a fairly good response, 12 to 15-minute response. And typically, you want the event over in 12 to 15 minutes, not waiting 12 to 15 minutes. But The total response from Mount Pleasant on Saturday night, when you should have at least half the 40 members there, was 8 people, including the 2 that were on duty. So that volunteer turnout is waning. Unfortunately, I don't see that turning. People simply don't volunteer like they used to. I grew up in the volunteer service in Cullman County. I spent 18 years there, and years ago, you had to beat people off, the roster, and now you just can't get them there, so it's difficult.
Okay. Anything good going on that you want to tell everybody? Any events coming up?
The Mud Mutters.
You'll be out there for the
Commissioner
Mud
White,
Mutters?
we welcome you down, sir.
Yeah, I know. So tell me what your responsibility is going to be for that tourism event that's out there with all those people.
We haven't quite got into that yet. We're still trying to make, I don't think, has your office made contact, Bobby made contact with them?
We're still.
Yeah, I know, same way here. So, the lady that's actually gonna be managing this event down here is going, she was tied up as of through May 15th, no, May 18th, at one in Illinois. And she was supposed to have called us back shortly after they were through. Well, here it is May 30th, and we've not heard anything yet from them.
But I presume that they're going to pay you for being out there? Or? They haven't made contact yet.
We'll see what happens.
Well, we would like to encourage them to help pay some of your expenses for being out there. How's that?
Ms. Carpenter said that there may be 5,000. From what we understand, the projected number is actually 30,000 on a farm in Mount Pleasant. So there's a lot of things that are, from a public safety standpoint, that these guys are going to have to handle.
Working with Fire Marshal's office in EM back here, they've all, both Steve and Bobby have worked ever since we found this out, and have worked behind the scenes trying to get in contact with these people. Because there's some issues, issues that are going to have to be worked out on permitting both the town down there and the county. That's all I'll say about that.
We'll be working to definitely create a plan to, for whatever's going to happen and ensure the safety of our visitors to Cabarrus County.
Registration now is at $115 a person, so do the math.
I think they can afford to pay you something
And
to be out there.
it goes up to $175 a person.
The day, I think the day of or the week before.
Yeah.
I'll pay yours, sir, if you'll come right.
Get that in writing, Mr.
Just
White.
don't even, hey, it won't be me. I don't know, you might be pretty good at that. I don't know.
You'd be surprised what you could do.
Any, social event, ice cream socials to have people in the community come out or do
We have
things?
July 4th event coming up at the end
Okay.
of June.
You'll have a parade and
Oh, yeah.
all kinds of entertainment.
They're doing a shagging contest down there on Friday night this year.
It's your opportunity to tell everybody about it, that's why. Okay. Okay, well, we appreciate, if you, commissioners, you don't have any other questions? Okay, we appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, and next we have Mount Mitchell Fire Department. Welcome, we're glad to have you with us today.
Good afternoon. How are y'all doing?
We're great.
Can I use part of his stuff that he just spoke to y'all about?
Whatever makes you happy.
Except to the end.
You got to take it all or none.
I don't want none of it, then. I'm Robert Earnhardt, Mount Mitchell Fire Department, and we're looking at doing an increase in our budget this year, too. I think last year, the revenue neutral is the first time we've done an increase in several years. We've been at 5 cents on the 100 for probably about 10, 12 years now. But we're looking basically about the same thing everybody else has come up here and said tonight or this afternoon. We're looking at doing a lot of improving on our station. When it was built back in 1967, there wasn't even no thought about nobody sleeping there or, 24-hour staffing or anything like that. But we're looking at the 24-hour staffing. We're looking at upgrading our building, putting in sleeping quarters, stuff like that. And we're also looking at purchasing a new engine. Our oldest engine is a 1988. It leaks a little oil here and there and water here and there. So we are looking at changing it out. We got one more payment, because I know y'all gonna ask that here in a minute. We got one more payment on our latest truck we bought, I think, 5 years ago, $47,000. And 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, I'm sorry, truck cost $375,000. That same just about truck now is about $475,000 to $485,000. So about every so many years, you can look at $100-some thousand for this stuff to go up. But we are looking at that. Looking at the ISO rating too. I've been going out as, I think I can't remember the name, the gentleman was talking about, asking for an increase and not doing it. It's something we're pushing very, very hard. We've been working on it for the last couple of years, but we're really getting more down into it now. Fire Marshal Office is pushing us. So I've been out looking at new ponds. I done found 5 ponds. I'm gonna have to build roads into some of them. Go out there and cut trees down, put road pipe in, different things to get into some of these ponds. A couple of them I'm very blessed on. I can pull right up to them, throw a hose in the water, get water and run. But there are going to be some essential money going to have to be put out. And I got a sheet here that we looked at, kind of broke down some stuff. Putting on 24-hour staffing right now, we're looking at roughly an increase of $60,000, not counting what the Fire Marshal Office is already putting out. Living quarters, we're looking roughly around $25,000. Truck payment, we're figuring the truck payment's going to probably be close to the same thing that our old one was. It was $47,000. And then just, different things there, just coming up roughly around $146,000, just what we're looking at doing, not counting, what already is paying out and stuff. We roughly pay out about $5,000 to $6,000 a month just in regular bills. So that's basically, we're looking at going up to 8.26, and that's a 3.5 cent increase. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Me and my president, we broke the numbers down, and even at the 3.5 cent increase, we're still like $100,000 roughly in the hole. By the time with the increase and what we're getting and what we're looking at doing, we're about $100,000 still in the hole that we're going to have to take out of what we have got put back over the years through our money market and stuff, because that's what we've been depending on, making our truck payments and stuff with the economy and everything. So that's roughly where we stand at.
Hey, my sheet says 2.5 cent increase, not 3.5. Says
.256.
0.0256, so
Yeah.
just over 2.5%
Yes,
increase.
just a little over 2.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. That sounds better. I know part of your district's in Rowan.
Maybe my brain was wanting to stick with the others.
Well, see, I can cheat because it's on the.
Oh,
here.
okay.
She already did the math for me, so
I've
that was a
seen her
good thing.
over there.
Yeah, she's pretty good. Park's pretty good too. I think we're gonna keep them both.
Are you?
Yeah, I think so.
You ever hire them out?
Well, I don't know about that. Now,
We'll hire them out at .256 per 100.
Y'all too expensive.
Part of your district's in Cabarrus County and part's in Rowan County.
Yes, ma'am.
So, are you the same tax rate in both counties?
No, ma'am. Well, we were.
How do you work that?
We were 5.26 in Rowan and was 5 cent in Cabarrus, but we're going straight through both counties the same amount. And that's a long story why that half a cent was in there on the Rowan County side, but we're going straight through on both of them. I got both budgets here, and we're going the exact same in both counties, Rowan and Cabarrus.
Do you split 50/50?
Actually,
valuation, I would say maybe either valuation or geography or.
Actually, I
How's
got
that
a
work?
little bit more Rowan County district than I do Cabarrus County, but I just lost a small subdivision, which pretty much brings it back probably now to about equal both counties now.
Okay, and I vaguely remember that there was a movement, I think, from in Rowan County.
I lost
They shift
Wellington
the line a little
Estate,
bit.
and they're moving the line down, and that's $5,000 a year, just that one development we are losing. So now it's going to put it pretty much equal just about across the board.
Okay. Commissioners, questions that you have?
I was looking at page 90 of your budget request or your information, and it has miscellaneous total expenditure, $10,000, but it has nothing under what that miscellaneous was.
I put that there just for, I didn't write anything out, but that was when stuff pops up, breakdowns. We had the engine here, well, not the engine, transmission broke down in one of our, matter of fact, the engine I'm trying to get rid of and replace. It broke down a couple years ago, something you're not expecting to happen. The engine, like I said, is an 88, and we would like to never found a transmission to go back in that thing. So I put in miscellaneous, I try to put something there every year just for some stupid reason, I reckon you'd just say.
Well, the reason why I say that is I got two budget proposals. One has the $10,000 in and one doesn't. So
Yeah.
either they got to match up or.
I made a mistake. Fire marshal's office actually come to me the other day and showed me where I'd put a couple things in the wrong places. And so, because they figured y'all was going to catch it, but it was a mistake. They kind of know you guys, you know. But yes, I did make a couple mistakes when I was doing the second budget to get it, you know, up and put some numbers in the wrong place.
And I would like to add, if I could, for both Mount Mitchell and actually Mount Pleasant, in the fire study, both of these departments are actually due for an apparatus replacement and are actually overdue.
Chief, I think in last year when you were here, you as with Chief Holloway just mentioned that you guys were supporting bulk purchasing and whatever it was going to take as well. You still feel that way?
Yes, sir. I have some concerns on it, but I'm the type of person I own my own business, because I was listening to y'all talk about the small businessman and all that stuff a while ago. And that's the way I treat the fire department. It's just like I do my personal masonry business, that if we can save money somewhere, I'm not out not to try that. I think sometimes, you know, it's hard to get everybody, and I think the last time I was here, I made a comment, good luck. And, but it's hard to get everybody to come together and say, yeah, we'll go with this Pierce, or we'll go with this KME, or, you know, because everybody's got their preferences on what they want to go with. But if I get a chance to try one out, and I think it'll work for my guys, you know, I'm not out not to try anything. If we can save money, that's my bottom line, because that's something I can put my money towards somewhere else for my guys.
No question.
Any other questions? I was glad that you asked about the $10,000. That is not a big party that you're going to have, and
No, ma'am.
and just or food every
If I do,
Friday
you'll
night.
be invited, I promise you.
Okay, now see, you heard that earlier, didn't you? I'm still looking for the ice cream social. Nobody's, actually, I think that's what July is.
Dairy Queen down the road, we get done here in a few minutes.
Well, they're mad at me because we went long last night, so I can't make any promises on that. But I don't know. It seems like somebody, one of them, it wasn't you, but one of our districts, I had a phone call from somebody saying that what they do is they provide a lot of food and steaks and stuff like that, and they thought it was all in their budget, and the residents were, again, it's not
wasn't
you.
us.
The residents were saying, why are we paying for them to eat steaks and stuff? And they could, you know, they don't need to ask for an increase, but I'm glad to know, you know, what that miscellaneous ties into, so.
You might get a phone call because, I mean, kind of what you just went with, we're doing a photo, company's doing a photo, and this is something you're going to ask me, you got anything coming up. They're having a photo shoot at our fire department this Sunday. If any of y'all like to take your families, go up there and have your pictures made and everything. But we had one of the residents in the thing, and he kind of chewed the photographer guy out. He asked me, he says, I don't understand. Why do these guys take the fire trucks to dinner? Why do they take the squad to go down to Home Depot? They can take their own vehicle and go to Home Depot. And that's what we're trying to get across to people. If that fire truck is, we're paying staffing and that fire truck's with us, we can leave there and go straight to a call. And, you know, that's a lot of thing with this here paid staffing and getting away from volunteers. And I'm very blessed with my volunteers. I mean, I listen to these other guys, and I'm not going to say it ain't going to happen to me, but we are very, very blessed with the turnout and the Concord kids. I got some that stay at my fire department every single day. If they ain't got class or something, they're up there all day long doing something with the trucks and everything. So we're very blessed up there.
Well, let's see, I think most teachers and students are counting down the days. So you got one more week, and you won't be able to run them off, so that'll be a good thing. School will be out for summer.
Hey, we've been doing a lot of pump training and everything here in the last few weeks, so they love it.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you very much. We
You're
appreciate you
welcome.
coming.
Thank y'all for y'all's time.
Do you have any, you want to add something?
I do. I believe Chief Jake Williams is here. And you remember last year Odell came before you and requested an increase to provide additional staffing and to be able to provide better protection. And they said they were going to lower their ISO rating. And, pleased to let all of you know that last month, our office, working with Odell and State Fire Marshal's office, came in and they were evaluated and did their water shuttle operation. And so we're hoping to hear back from the state within the next, hopefully, month or so, and they'll have lowered their rating for their district.
Well, that's good news for us to get and good news to share, because that is one thing I know we've talked about on a couple different areas, that reducing that rate, the insurance rate, kind of helps balance out from what you're paying in your taxes, and that's, we want to make sure all our areas are covered in the county, so that's good. I would like to ask, and you can get a response. In all honesty, I'd rather somebody come on a personal note. I'd like to hear an update from Harrisburg.
Okay.
I don't know of construction going on for another fire station, and I'd like to get some, or unless you have information.
Yeah, I spoke with the town manager this morning. Their study has been complete. I don't know if you guys have heard that now. And and part of that study was to search for the best location for that additional station. And I believe the study came back and said the exact same location that they were originally planning. So,
Yep.
So I think that's what they're moving forward on. So I believe that's correct.
That's what I heard.
I believe that there was a tax increase last year to help pay for that station. We haven't seen any movement on it, and haven't gotten a response back, so that's good to know.
Well, we'll definitely talk to them and try to get them to come to the next work session and give you an update.
If they come, or if we can just get something that lets us know. I'd like to know a timeline. If that's come back and that's the same place, I'd like to get some commitment from them and the town council on how they're moving forward to make sure that's in place, because, when none of us want to raise the tax rate, or, I think that's pretty evident. But if you do make that, and it's because of a quote-unquote promise that this is what we're going to accomplish as a result of it, we want to make sure those results are there. So that was one. I don't know if there are any other departments that any of you have questions about that you need to get more information on?
Can we reduce the tax rate without them? I mean, can we do it? We can reduce it on our own, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So we can reduce that tax rate back to where it was, since they haven't done what they told us they were going to do. Then that has to be done before June 30th?
Yes, sir. We will have we can get the town manager to come here and speak to you at your work session if you would.
That's up to him, discretion. I mean, if he wants to, that's fine. If he doesn't want to, we can certainly take this up on June the 17th.
I think their intentions are to continue on now that they have settled on the site.
I just think that everybody doesn't have to come to this meeting if you're not asking for a change, but I do think it would be good for us to get information, even if they're not coming and asking for a change in the rate. I don't mean for everybody to come up here and take 10 minutes, that just extends the meeting, but send something in, highlight something that we can get as a group so we kind of have a better idea of what's going on. As I've said before, I live in the city limits. Other than riding by, if I see the door open, I don't really interact with the volunteer fire departments. I'm glad they're there. I'd much rather it be that way than us have a county volunteer fire department. That much I think we all agree on. But it's just nice to get feedback, so that if we get a phone call, if I get a phone call from somebody in, we'll pick on somebody that's not here, Georgeville, Gold Hill, Jackson Park. If I get a phone call from somebody that lives in that area, I don't have a clue. I mean, I really don't. I don't have any way to answer it. I can call you and you can help me, but I just like having some understanding of what's going on. So
Definitely, and it would probably be a good idea in the future we'll try to work with the departments to create an annual report to give you an update on, the department.
Okay, Commissioners, let's take a 5-minute break. Okay, and make it 5 minutes, not 10.